Hello and welcome to We Are Virtual, We Are the City's special series for you in this lockdown during COVID-19. We're working from home and my name's Esther Stanhope. I'll talk about myself in a few moments, but thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're watching live, get your pens ready to write notes. Also get your chat box ready and please do chat to me, and also get your questions ready, and you have to click on the Q&A function. If you're watching a recording, get a pen ready because there's going to be loads of tips and you're going to have to, you'll want to write notes, but you can sit back and relax. You won't be able to chat and you won't be able to ask me questions live. So this is how to ace remote meetings and interviews. But before we start, while people are still, I can see people are still logging on, let's have a quick shout out. Give me a quick shout out. I know a few people have been here early watching behind the scenes before we press record. So where are you? Who are you? And where are you? Please say good morning, on just use the chat room for now, the chat box, and just please say hello and where you're from, just so I can give you a quick shout out. The other week there was somebody from Japan, so I was like, konnichiwa. So, I mean, where are you? In the UK? Are you in Europe? Ciao, hola, hello, Suffolk, brilliant, hello. How are you? Pinner in London, fantastic. In the UK, St Albans, brilliant. Essex and Brentwood, oh my goodness. You know, it feels like we're all in the same kind of room, doesn't it? It's very funny. Wolverhampton, hello Wolverhampton, brilliant. Keep them coming in, and I would really love to hear from you throughout the session today, because this is about us supporting each other, getting involved, and I want this to be about you as much as anything else. So, how to ace remote meetings and interviews. I've created this specially for you, and you are going to walk away with tips on how to look good on camera. And really, you can look good on camera. Jodie in Hertfordshire, hello. You're going to walk away looking good on camera. I'm going to teach you how to engage with your audience through a camera lens. And one of the main things that people ask me is, how do I look relaxed, confident, and normal? Well, I don't know if I look or sound or act normal, but how do you kind of look at one with your camera? How do you act normal in front of a video lens? And I've been working with clients for the last 5 weeks during the lockdown. We're recording this on the beginning of week 6 of lockdown in the UK. And there's all kinds of shenanigans going on with remote meetings. People are making the most horrendous boobs, if you don't mind me saying. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I mean, people email me their daily Zoom activities and things that have gone wrong, and naked people. I mean, honestly, I can't actually repeat a lot of the pictures and videos people have been sending me. I actually created this funny tabloidy daily Zoom banner so I could put it on social media, and I write about it in my newsletter. If you've spied any bad daily Zoom, as in bad remote meeting stories, please email me. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll put my email up at the end as well. But some of the things that have been going on in the last few weeks. So the thing that made me laugh the most was the boss that turned herself into a potato for the entire meeting. I don't know whether you've heard of that, or you've seen anyone turning themselves into a potato, but there's so many things going wrong with remote meetings. I mean, the way we're looking up people's nostrils, people aren't positioning themselves right on camera. The audio's going wrong. We've got noise in the background. We've got children. We've got dogs. What about the Welsh minister? That guy, he's up there on the right with the right hand pink arrow there. The Welsh minister that didn't know his mic was still up and he started swearing. It's just embarrassing. Now, because my background is from the BBC and I've been in broadcasting for many years, I learnt the hard way that if you are anywhere near video, microphone, lapel mics, any form of recording equipment, do not swear and slag people off. Don't badmouth people. Don't be horrible. Don't swear, because you will be caught on camera or on mic. And I've got some horrendous stories from when I was at the BBC of people's mics up. I mean, people going to the toilet, people having affairs. I mean, all kinds of things. People getting sacked because they didn't realise that the presenter had open talkback, which means that they can hear what's going on in the gallery. So the Welsh minister perfectly demonstrated to us what happens when you are off guard. And the thing about Zoom, there's been so many things going on over the past few weeks. The thing about Zoom and remote meetings is that you are on show, you're on air the whole time, and you really can't drop your guard. And so that's my first tip of the day. When you're on air, you're on air. Do not drop your face, do not drop your guard. So even at the end of the meeting, when it's like, okay, that's a great meeting, thanks, and you click, and then it doesn't go off. And then you click again, and then it doesn't go off again. So just don't drop your face. You can see them on the news sometimes. They shuffle their papers at the end. You can almost see their face drop. Don't do that, okay? So my background, broadcasting for 20 years or more. I've interviewed Hollywood stars, including George Clooney. I've interviewed Sharon Stone, Madonna, the Spice Girls, the Oasis, and rock stars. Around about the late 90s, I was a showbiz reporter. But I left the BBC in 2010 to set up my own business. And I now work in the city, in London, in business. And I go all over the world now, speaking and helping people with their speeches, with their keynotes, how to have more personal impact, more executive presence. And now, quite conveniently, actually, I'm helping people to have more executive presence on camera in remote meetings or audio meetings, conference calls. Because people are doing everything, a lot of people are doing it wrong, okay? But it doesn't take very much for you to do it right. You can be really good at this. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn some of the skills that I learned from broadcasting and bring them into the boardroom or into your house, into your little mini TV studio. And I'm going to teach you how to be a semi-pro TV presenter, basically. Because now we're being expected to broadcast. It's not the same anymore. It's like we're all expected to be this professional broadcaster, because that's what we're doing. We're broadcasting now. So the first thing I'd like to do with your chat box, we're going to do a little experiment with your chat, is I'm going to get you to rate yourself out of 10. If you've seen any of my live masterclasses, you know I love to get my ratings. So just do a quick, just write down a number and maybe why you're rating yourself out of 10, but just a number will do for now, to give yourself a mark out of 10, where 10 is brilliant. You're like a professional TV presenter. And 1 is, I hate remote meetings. I avoid them. I hate being on camera. I hate the sound of my own voice. I hate watching myself. Okay, 2, 6, 9. Very good, but very conscious of everything. 7, 6, 5, good. 3, don't like being on camera. Okay, quite a lot of 6s. Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sally. Thank you very much, Mira, Charlotte, Kathy. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got lots of 5s and 6s. We've got a couple of 2s and 3s. Thank you for being honest. And even if you're a 7 or an 8, right? Practice and experience, but every day is like a school day. Yeah. So I've got to say, I'll be honest with you. Okay. I was a very nervous public speaker in the past. That's why I wrote my book, which I'll talk about later. But 5 weeks ago, I felt the fear of having to go on camera and hold a remote masterclass. I felt sick, my mind went blank, I suddenly lost my confidence. I forgot all of the tips that I know because I've been producing people for 20 years. I know what to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that I felt comfortable myself. I too don't like watching myself back. I too don't really like the sound of my own voice. That's normal. But I know how to do it, and I'm going to teach you how to do it so you can feel more comfortable on camera. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to just use the chat room, not the Q&A yet. I'd like you to use the chat room and just tell me what your biggest what ifs are, your biggest fears, your biggest, oh, I'm really afraid of. Is it you're afraid of looking like an idiot? Is it afraid of your voice, your tempo, failure of tech? Thank you, Sally. The failure of tech. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Absolutely. What are you afraid of? So use your chat box. I'm just going to do an experiment here. I'm going to put myself on screen for a moment because I like going to and from the slides, because when you've got slides and there's only a tiny little video, I don't know if I've completely ruined the configuration of your screen now. You can change the way you see this. If you're watching live, you can put gallery view, or you can change the configuration. But I like to go between slides and camera just because it mixes and matches, which is going to be one of my tips as well. So yeah, tell me, what are you most frightened of? And I was frightened of tech. I was terrified of the tech. I was frightened of looking stupid. I was frightened of failure. I was frightened of, do I have a script? Do I not have a script? Oh my goodness, there's so many questions about style and running orders. And can you coach live on air? Can you pitch remotely? How do you pitch? Can you pitch as a team? Can you pitch when your team is in Europe and you're trying to pitch to your US clients? Can you have a job interview? Yes, you can. So all of these worries and what ifs, what if the tech fails? What if my broadband goes down? What if, and it is absolutely terrifying when you don't know how. So let's have a look at some of the what ifs, the most common what ifs. Okay, so these are the most common ones. And thank you so much. I'm gonna have a check the chat box in a moment. How can I engage with my audience when I can't look them in the eye? Good question. The answer to that really is you can't treat it exactly like you're face to face because you're communicating through a video channel. But I'm going to give you some really good tips on how you can come across as credible, how you can come across as engaging, how you can come across as confident and relaxed. Lots of people say this. I hate the camera. I hate seeing myself. I hate looking into a lens. It's a dead piece, little round thing there, or it's a green dot. I don't like the lens and I don't like seeing myself on camera. And a lot of people shy away from the camera. How do you know when to speak? Are silences all right? Well, I'm going to answer that as well. And I'm worried if the tech will fail. That's the biggest worry of all. Right, let's have a quick look at some of your chats. Not looking rigid, yeah. Missing out on opportunities because things are out of my control, absolutely. Not being able to connect with the person via a call, being put on the spot. Oh yeah, you're put on the spot and there you are. The camera doesn't lie, the camera's looking at you, but you want to look through some notes or you want to look somewhere else or you want to refer to something else. It's quite scary because you can't stop. And having been a live producer at the BBC and having been in live broadcasting scenarios, you know, you'd think I would just be totally at one with live, you know, this live medium. Well, actually, the one thing that the biggest tip about this is you've got to just practice. You've just got to get yourself a practice buddy. That's the best tip I can give you. A friend, a colleague, somebody who understands, probably somebody who also needs to practice. Get yourself a practice buddy and just do it. And try and do it every day, even if it's your mum, your cousin, your sister, your colleague. Try and set up these remote meetings. Try and get in the habit of just doing it, controlling it, being the chairperson and hosting them on a daily basis. Okay, so these are my top 10 tips. A couple of them are going to be exercises as well. Now I've got loads of tips and I will be sending you more tips after this, but for this session today, I just want to give you a taster and an opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to spend some time at the end just on the Q&A towards the end of the session. I will double check them as we go along as well, but I will be spending some time on Q&A. So please do, if you want me to do your Q&As, you have to use the Q&A chat box to give me your questions. But please do keep using the chat box for the kind of general little comments and things as we go. Okay, so these are the top 10 tips on how to ace remote meetings and interviews. Meetings and interviews. So please do keep your comments and questions coming as we go along. So tip number 1. It's really simple tip. And a lot of people aren't playing it by the rules. But the main tip with a group of people having a remote meeting, whether it's audio or video, is keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking. Keep your microphone muted and make sure that everyone in your party keeps their microphone muted before they speak. And then you can get in the habit of unmuting. If there's a lot of people in the room or you want to speak to a lot of people at the same time, unmute them, get them to unmute themselves. It's okay, but you've got to keep control of the microphone situation. I've heard so many stories of people. What's happening with the technology is that Zoom is integrating with other technologies as well. So if your Cisco system, if your corporate system is Cisco or your Microsoft Teams, for example, if you integrate it with Zoom, it goes, it's like echoing. It's awful. The sound quality is awful. So you can't have your mic up. In fact, you probably can't speak in that meeting if you've got an echoey sound. The other thing is just dogs barking, children asking, mom, in the background, keyboards. You don't really want, it's very, very off-putting, and it's kind of rude to have background noise. So make sure if you're in charge of the meeting, or if you can have influence over your meeting, everybody is muted until they speak. That's the name of the game. So I'm going to go through some of these questions. Some of them, we've got some exercises coming up as well. How to build a rapport. Now, you need to build a rapport fast when you're doing remote meetings. This is a broadcasting technique. You need to make sure that you're keeping the audience involved, hooked in. So at the beginning I said, hello, where are you from? We had Essex, we had Hertfordshire, we had Sussex, Surrey. Brilliant. Thank you so much for saying where you're from. It just gives people, it just makes your audience feel that they're part of your meeting. Now, we're actually in a slightly different mode. We're not quite in meeting mode. If I've got less people on the call or the meeting, actually, encourage people to put their videos on and their mics up. Or if they haven't got their video on, encourage people to have a little chat and to break the ice at the beginning. We've been doing it remotely via a chat room. But actually, it's really good if you're doing a remote meeting. You really want to get your audience involved in your content very, very quickly. Your audience is likely to switch off very fast if you don't keep them hooked in. Which brings me on to tip number 3. Very, very quick tip. The audience hook. You need to tease ahead with the audience. I've got a little story about that coming up next. But here's the thing. If you don't let the audience know, so for example, coming up today, I'm going to show you how to do a flattering camera angle, flattering lighting, and how to have an even better voice. I've got stories from Cilla Black, who used to present Blind Date. That's just an example of what's coming up on the show today, folks. On the show, coming up, teasing ahead. You must do that on remote calls, because if people don't think it's worth staying and worth listening to, they'll tune out. Just like a TV program, unless you know, oh, that's coming up, I'll tune out. Okay, so I'm keeping you hooked by giving you a little teaser. You want to look good on video, right? I'm going to make you look so much better. I promise you, that's coming up. But let's go on to tip number 4, which is content. And this is about interviews. This is actually about any meeting or pitch or interview scenario, and it's a one size fits all, but it is very much hang on, I'm just going to click on this because my chat room isn't going down. Okay, so tip 1 is unmuting. So facilitating meetings effectively to ensure that all voices are heard. Okay, so basically what happens is that you need to have you do need to unmute people. That's right. It's negative if people are muted. It can be really negative. But so it's about controlling the muting and unmuting. The main thing is when you've got lots of people, if everybody's unmuted, it's just a complete mess if you're not careful. But yeah, you want to unmute people if you can, as much as you can, or get people involved in the content as much as you can. Thank you very much, Mira, for that comment. Okay, so tip number 4. Content chunks. So chunk it up. This is just a very, very quick, easy tip. I'm sure you do this already, but I have found this unbelievably handy for public speaking, for podcasts, for blogs, for all kinds of communication, for presentations, pitches, for your job interview, for your appraisal. Having chunks of content. What you want is you want to have easy bite-size pieces of content, like a bar of chocolate. And each chunk of your bar of chocolate is a little piece of delicious loveliness. It's a little piece of story, a little piece of your career, a little story about your success stories, or it's a little piece of content. For me, maybe it could be a tip, or it could be a story about the BBC. And I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment. So this is how you can chunk up your content. Now, this particularly is relevant for interviews. We're going to talk about how to look good on camera in one moment. But before we do that, let's talk about a little bit about content. And I've helped many people in the city, Deloitte, at major banks, global banks, and I developed this little formula called the Q&A formula. it's similar to STAR. There's lots of other kind of acronyms people use, little easy to remember acronyms to get their content together when they're talking about themselves. But I'm just going to share this with you today because it's a quick fix of how to prepare, particularly for a job interview or an appraisal situation. So the Q&A formula, and this is how to chunk up your content. So each piece of your content, or the opening of your meeting, for example, the elevator version of talking about yourself, the elevator version of the beginning of the meeting. Each piece of content you can put into this formula. I call it the Q&A formula because everybody needs to have their questions ready to answer for when they're having some kind of job interview, or if someone goes, tell me about yourself or something. You need to have some good examples and stories in your back pocket so you can easily communicate. On remote meetings, it's really, really important that you've got good content ready to go, and don't expect just to do it on the fly, because sometimes when you are in the spotlight and the camera's on you and somebody asks you a question and you're like, yeah, it's, you know, you don't look good if you haven't got something prepared earlier. And it doesn't have to be really well scripted. It's just being mindful of having these chunks of content that you can just chuck out whenever you're asked about it. Okay, so let's see if we can do an exercise now. Get your pens ready. If you're watching live, you can actually tell me some of your top lines. If you're listening, get a pen out because you're going to do this exercise. If you're listening to a recording. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you the question. So tell us about yourself. That's a really hard question. I'm going to give you an example of how to do it. So if somebody asks you the question, for example, if you're in a pitch or you're in a meeting or you're even in a job interview and someone says, tell us a bit about yourself. Or one of those scenarios where you're around the table and they say, let's introduce ourselves. Well, let's tell everyone a little bit about ourselves. And you've got about a minute or less, right? And you need to have something ready for that moment. So we'll just use that question because it's a bit of a weasel question, isn't it, right? So tell us a little bit about yourself. So don't worry, for this particular exercise now, don't rack your brains and feel like a failure because you can't think, oh no, what's my top line? Don't worry, because you can come back to it. But we're going to come up with something today. We're going to come up with something to talk about ourselves by the end of this session. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's a good tip. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to demonstrate. I'm going to use some of my content just to demonstrate how this works. So if you want to chunk up your content, you want a top line or a headline. You want a little story or an example to illustrate your headline. You want a feeling. Number 3 in the Q&A is a feeling. So, personally, how I feel is ... And then 4, you want something, what next? What does it mean? What's the future? So now I'm going to demonstrate it for me, and then you can have a go doing it for you. So somebody asked me, tell us about yourself. I could answer 20 ways, right? But for today, I'm going to answer, my top line is going to be, I use broadcasting. Well, I'm a former BBC producer and I use all my broadcasting skills in business. So that's my top line. What could your top line be that isn't just your job interview? Oh, look, I'm an intelligent, experienced and passionate who brings honest and genuine face-to-face, otherwise corporate world. I help clients to reduce accidents and manage their risks. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. That's from Jane. Thank you for that. Excellent. So what's your top line? So mine is former BBC producer, use broadcasting for business and it works. That's my top line. Example. Okay, now this is where you can put your personality into it a little bit. It's a story. Okay. Yes, I will be sending notes after the webinar. Yes, I will. And I'll be sending you a PDF. I'll let you know how to get all the notes after the session. Okay. So the second bit of the Q&A formula is this example or story. This is where you paint a picture. And it would be really good just to use one example, not 20 years of examples, one example. So if I'm a former BBC producer and I use broadcasting rules in business and it really works, my example, my story is one time when I was doing a live broadcast at the BBC and Boris Johnson was Mayor of London. He came to the online, it was about the Olympics, I believe. And one of my presenters, Jo Good, Boris had turned up and we were just about to go into the news. And we were about to do a big question and answer session with Boris live on air. And Boris Johnson turned up, and Jo went to the travel and news and went, and now for travel and news. And she didn't say before the travel and news, coming up after travel and news, Boris Johnson will be answering all of your questions about Tower Hamlets, blah, 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 blah. And I said to Jo, why did you go straight to the news? You've wasted 6 minutes of the audience calling up with their questions. You didn't ask them to call us. You didn't give out the number. You didn't say, coming up after the news, you can ask Boris Johnson all about how the Olympics is affecting you. Please call this number, 0207 722 42000. I can remember the number. It was all those years ago. And I remember Jo saying to me recently when I saw her, you know, I remember when you told me off, we were live doing a broadcast. I remember you saying, you wasted 6 minutes. And she said, from that moment on, I never wasted any broadcasting time. I knew how to tease ahead. I told you earlier about teasing ahead. She said, I know about teasing ahead. Never go, and coming up, and no, without saying coming up, just, and now this. It stops the audience. You need to tee things up. You need to tease ahead. So that's my story. So that story is about teasing ahead. What that story does is it positions me as a BBC producer. It's also got a really good tip in it about teasing ahead. But it illustrates my top line, which is I use broadcasting skills in business. If you're in a meeting and you tease ahead, coming up in this meeting, before we do that, we're going to have, you know, before the donuts, let's just look at this. Tease, always coming up, and it's got to be something really good for the audience. And they're going to go, oh, that's going to be good. Okay, number 3 in my formula, feeling. I've just realized my formula spells TEF. I don't know if that's meaningful or not. Feeling. How do you feel about the story? How do you feel about it? So how do I personally feel? I personally feel, I know people can be good. This is how I personally feel. I feel so great when I see business people come to life and use the skills that I've taught them, like teasing ahead, like getting their audience's attention. I love that so much. I love my job. I love working with people. I feel really proud and I feel really passionate about helping people. Now, when I tell you how I feel about it, I love it, I'm passionate about it, and all the, okay, I know the word, people tell me off for using the word passionate because I think it might be a bit, you know, cliched. The fact is, if I put my own feeling into it, it just makes it more authentic. You feel that I'm speaking from the heart, that I know what I'm talking about, that I really have lived through these experiences rather than just a factual account of something. So putting in a feeling, a really good general tip for any communication, add how you personally feel about it. Really good tip. And then finally, 4 in my Q&A formula that spells TEF, future. What does it mean? What next? So what? Okay, so in my case, I'm just going to go the whole hog and I'm going to say, so what does it mean? What next? I'm going to write a book about it. I've written one book and I won an award for it. My next book, I think, might be How to Ace Remote Meetings, or Daily Zoom Boobs, or the Daily Zoom, you know, all of your pear-shaped pitches on Zoom. So I want to spread the word and help people to be good on camera. And I might write a book. I'm definitely going to do more masterclasses about it. So that's my version of the Q&A formula. What's your version? Write down a few notes. You can come back to it later. Top line. What's your story? One incident. I remember one time when ... How do you feel about it? What's your personal view of that? Are you proud? Do you love it? Do you find it challenging? You know, how do you personally feel about it? And so what? What next? What does it mean? What does it mean for the future? What have you learned to bring forward into the future? What are you doing next? Thank you so much for sending me some of your notes as well. I will be sending you notes and PDF of the slides as well. And I've got loads of tips I'm going to be sending you after this. But thank you so much. Inspiring, and this is from Sangi, inspiring and encouraging women and girls to get involved with opportunities in cricket at the England and Wales Cricket Board. Brilliant. Oh my goodness, I want to hear about cricket. That sounds so good. Thank you so much. You get a gold star. Thank you so much for having a go at that. I'm sure you've got that. You've got versions of that. The point about the Q&A formula is that you really can apply that to any question, and it works. Okay, now we're going to have a little bit of fun. This is how you can look good, sound good, and more importantly, feel good on camera, feel confident. Okay, so it's all about the lens. So tip 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, I can't count. LENS, 5, 6, 7, 8. Tips 5, 6, 7, and 8. They do spell a word. Lens, L-E-N-S. I've got kids, I'm doing homeschooling. So tip 5 is L for lens. This is where people have been going wrong with their remote meetings. L stands for love the lens. That is the lens. Now I want you to get your finger, even though I can't see you, I'm just imagining you, get your finger right now and point to your lens. Get your finger. I'm just going to do this now. I'm going to share for a minute. Get your finger and point to your lens, because when you point to the lens, that is how you engage with your audience. And the rules are, when you speak to the camera lens. You speak to the lens. That's the rule. But when you listen, your speaker should be speaking to their lens. But what happens is that people are like this. They're talking like this. They're reading scripts and they're not engaging with the lens. And look, if you're the audience, you want me to talk to you, right? You want me to talk to you. You don't want me to talk over here. You don't want me to look down under your chin. You want to be talking to you. Now, I've got a great little story to illustrate the lens formula, and this is a story from Cilla Black, and it's in my book actually, which I'm going to be giving you an opportunity to win this in a moment. Look at me showing you my book, but there's a really good chapter in it about Cilla Black, and Cilla Black used to call camera one on blind date in 1985 or 1987 in the 80s. Blind Date was one of the highest rating ITV shows. Cilla Black was the presenter of Blind Date. Do you remember? And here's Graham with a quick reminder. Do you remember? I can't do an accent. I love Cilla Black's accent. But if you remember Cilla Black from Blind Date, a UK dating show, she was the nation's favourite presenter at the time. She spoke to 18 million people on a Saturday night. Her trick was that she used to call camera one Bobby, after her late husband. She loved camera one. She loved her lens. That's her lens there. So the question for you is, she loved her lens. So 18 million people at home thought she loved them because she's affectionate. She's in love with them. She's in love with the lens, okay? But when people say, oh, I hate cameras, if you treat the camera like you hate it, the people watching are going to think you hate them. So do what Cilla did and love the lens. And I'm going to ask you, just like my client here, Richard, Simon Lysett, he's the royal florist, and I coached him ready to go and film his TV show in the US for HBO. He called his lens Richard after his partner. My question to you is, what do you call your lens? What are you going to call your lens? And please do share on the chat. Please do share on the chat. What are you going to call your lens? Now, I've had people calling their lens Brad Pitt, Tibbles, Carlotta. I love it. Is that after your cat? You know, I could call mine Gertie because my cat's called Yo, Mammy. Love it. Great. I love that. So I've had Brad Pitt. I've had George Clooney. Thor. Does Thor make you go, Thor, I love you? Darling, darling, that's Kate. Kate, darling. Now, I really ought to call my lens Adam after my husband, but I've got to say, some days I'm not quite as in love with him as I should be. I used to call my camera Dolores, just so if I was running a session in a bank or something, I'd say, meet Dolores, to kind of bring it to life, and people thought I was going a little bit crazy. So, but that's so funny. Right, so what's your lovely lens called? Please do think about what you're going to call your lens and have a bit of fun with that. So tip 6, E in lens. If you've seen any of my sessions before, you know this is my hashtag, eyes and teeth. Smile. 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 Look at me, I'm being showbiz now. Look, I don't expect you to be showbiz. You don't have to do jazz hands, and you don't have to be like, hi, look at me smiling. But if you smile, the camera picks up on your eyes, your face. It is the most essential physical thing you can do when you're on camera. If you're not smiling, you're in danger of looking like either on the witness protection program or a serial killer, or you just look a bit glum on camera if you don't smile. Even just putting your zygomatic major nerves up makes a massive difference to the way that you come across on camera. And you'll notice when you watch TV that the presenters that have a natural smile, and the ones that, if you start looking a bit glum, it really does notice on camera. So look, when you smile, it just lifts everything. It lifts your voice. I've got loads of science behind it, why smiling is so good for your voice. But it makes you look comfortable. Like everybody wants to look comfortable, relaxed. They don't want to look wooden on camera. As soon as you smile, so let's just try smiling while you're there. And actually, a good way to think about, what smiling, a good way to make yourself smile is think, what makes me smile? Now, I don't want to, distract you in your very important interview or meeting, but today when I was thinking about the potato, like, my boss turned herself into a potato. When I think about my boss turned herself into a potato, it just makes me smile. It tickles me. Or if I think about my cat walking over the keyboard the other day, that makes me smile. Anything that makes you smile. Maybe you can imagine your boss as a potato. That could be your lens, your potato boss. It's really, really good. It makes you look and sound better. So when your zygomatic major nerves go up, your brain thinks that you are happy and relaxed. Also, it relaxes your soft palate, which gives you a better voice. Your voice changes when you smile. So you might have family around you or people around you, but just really give me a big smile. Give me a big smile in the comfort of your own home, and just say, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Smiling. Go on, you do it. Excellent. And now put your zygomatic major nerves down. Make sure your mouth is going downwards and go, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Now, can you hear the difference in your voice? Now smile again. Good afternoon. You can hear. Good afternoon. It's so much better for your voice. You must know that. If you smile, it's good for the voice. Now, that is a great tip in life. Smile for a better voice. Smile so the camera thinks that you're relaxed. Even if you're dying inside, the camera will think, not wooden at all. Totally relaxed. Fake it till you make it. Yeah. Okay. N in lens. Noise. We talked earlier about keyboards in the background. So I think a person that demonstrated noise and bad shots generally, and how not to do remote meetings. Do you remember Professor Robert Kelly on the BBC on news, and his children ran in, his wife ran in, we all thought she was the nanny, it was terrible, it was a disaster. But the sound of children, actually that is my cat Gertie sitting in a box. We were trying to take pictures of clothes for eBay, and the cat got in the box. My cat she has been my background noise nightmare. But here's the tip about noise. If you have a more confined space, you're less likely to have background interference. If you have a half decent mic, you will sound better. So I've got loads of tips on kit and microphones and stuff coming up if you're interested in that sort of thing. If you're not interested, that's okay. I'll give it, I've got a cheat sheet of kit and stuff like that. The most important thing about noise, though, is that you're more likely to get a better sound for your remote meetings if you're in a smaller area. So the broom cupboard at the BBC, remember, I'm talking about old TV programs again, but the broom cupboard, having a cupboard, like my office is tiny. It's 170 centimeters square, this office. And I decided that because it's square is actually not good for sound. Things like beautiful polished floors, floorboards, no furniture, sparse environments you might want a nice blank canvas for your background, but actually if you don't have objects and things in your room, your voice isn't going to sound very good, and the sound isn't going to be very good, and the noise interference won't be good either. So I mean, I've actually been experimenting in my office. So I'm actually going to unshare for a moment to show you this. I've actually got I'm actually putting these. If you've ever seen a recording studio, they have these funny kind of egg box style or any kind of object sticking out. They're actually called baffles. So you want to baffle the sound. I know that sounds very strange. If you look up there, you can see I've got my microphone there, and I've got my baffles on my ceiling. They're called acoustic sound tiles. So if you want to know more about the technical side of noise and sound and noise reduction and noise maximizing your sound, I've got a cheat sheet. But these acoustic sound tiles, brilliant, because you can get them in really good colors, and just having a couple of them on your wall will make your voice sound better or make your sound better. I'm not necessarily going to soundproof everything. It's not about soundproofing. It's just about making your voice work harder with little effort. Now I've actually sewn up, my little sheet here, and I use my own. I bought these little curtain hooks for £2 on Amazon. It's amazing what you can do to get yourself in the right environment. Which brings us on to tip number 8, which is S for lens. S for shot. I'm talking about lens. It's the end of lens, and it's S for shot. That's because I'm trying to do 2 things at once, because I'm looking at the chat as well. What's this, Priscilla? So simple but so true, I know, and I don't look at the lens when I'm speaking. Very good, Priscilla, but now you will, and you're going to look like a pro. Shot. Now where do I start? I've only got a few minutes because I want to get onto the Q&A. Remember to put the Q&As, your questions, in the Q&A box, and I'll check them in a moment. Shot. My client had her dirty washing in the background. There's been naked people. They didn't realize the camera was on. My friend sent me it was a really important video, and the guy had no pants on. My friend's wife was wearing fluffy pajamas in the background of his board meeting. I mean, look, this is a techie guy, James, here in the shot here. I mean, when he first put his camera on the other day, he actually, look, he's got his washing out, and he's got his window behind him. And that's my brother. Dark face, a little egg at the bottom of the screen. You don't want to look like a dark little figure at the bottom, like some weird killer. You don't want to look like Humpty Dumpty. You want to look professional. So I've got a few really, really simple tips. Okay, the first tip. Okay, so now you're looking at the lens. When you're lining yourself up, in fact, I'm just going to look at myself here and make sure I'm lined up right. Rule of thumb, your eyes need to be 1/3 of the way down the screen. Third of the way down the screen. Now you can go close. You can have a close-up shot. Now I can't actually see my own shot. Is that 1/3 of the way? You can do a close-up shot, and maybe it'll chop the top of your head off. But the most important thing is that your eyes are 1/3 of the way down the screen. If you have a slightly longer shot, or this would be more like a mid shot, as long as your eyes are 1/3 of the way down the screen, you look better. The main rule of thumb: fill the frame, balance the frame. If you've got detail there, sit there. If you've got balance detail, like a vase with some flowers here and something else there, or 2 different things, like an archway or something behind you, fill the frame, balance the frame, have your eyes 1/3 of the way down the screen. I noticed the other when the Queen did her speech on UK TV in her bright green dress, she had a beautiful little flower arrangement. So they put her in that side of the shot and the flowers in that side of the shot, and it looked delightful. I've got to say that the main thing is that if you look half decent in your shot, you will look so much better. But another thing about the shot: find the light. Find the light this way. Really good tip. 45-degree angle is more flattering. And another really good tip: you do want to have some backlighting, otherwise your background looks a bit kind of dull, and you really want side lighting. I've actually got a little LED light here. Again, can you see that LED light there? Again, if you're interested in the tech and the kit, because some people, I've literally done a little cheat sheet of my little mini studio, how I've set it up with the microphone and 3 lights, and the curtain and everything. If you really want to see how I've set it up, then I've got that to send you. Okay, brilliant. Right, let's see what else I've put for, now my mouse isn't working. Here we go. So let's go to questions and answers in a few moments. Here's my little, I will be sending you, I'm going to pick up the Q&A in about 1 minute. Let me just see what you've said in the chat. I'm just going to check a bit of chat. So what do you think of the preloaded backgrounds? Good question. Good question. Preloaded backgrounds. Okay. I personally don't really like them that much, but I can see you can have fun with them. If you're doing fun stuff, go for it. I mean, the other day we had a drinks event. My client was on a crabby beach in Thailand. Somebody else was in the Bahamas. Somebody else had fake bookshelves pretending to be, you know, intellectual. We've had Harry Potter. I've seen so many funny sets. Some people actually have their own like child pictures behind them. I think it's absolutely fine. It's all about the context. If you've got a pitch meeting or some kind of professional interview, you want your background to have the right message. You want it to reflect you. So the main answer to any question about your background is, what does your audience need? Will your audience think it's good? Is that the right message that you want on that day? Then that kind of determines your background. For me, because I do a lot of remote meetings, I do remote sessions, I do remote speaking, I needed to have, for me personally, I needed a mini kind of TV studio set up, just so I know that when I go online, I've got proper lighting. I don't bother with natural light. Natural light is the best light, but if you're doing different meetings throughout the day, so for me, when I'm broadcasting late in the day, it might be to America, the natural light goes blue, because dusk and dawn is very much, the daylight is the ultraviolet light, it goes blue. So you kind of want, for me, I like to have control over my lighting strategy. But no, I think have fun with it, but it's got to be right for your audience. I would suggest some kind of curtain. You can actually get those backdrops that models use if you really want to. Okay, let's quickly get on to tip 9 and 10, and then we'll go to questions. So yes, the reasonably priced microphone's coming up. I will be giving you cheat sheets and some technical suggestions as well after this. So quickly, tip 9, hair, wardrobe, makeup. The quick tip there is, yes, please. Yes, hair. Yes, wardrobe. Yes, makeup. Don't leave it to chance. Why would you possibly want to go on camera in front of the interview panel and look like you've just rolled out of bed? So if I was doing a live show, I'd go to the salon, get a blow dry. I'd put my lipstick on. I was doing this podcast. The facilities were only go to the loo and put your makeup on in the loo. But hair, wardrobe, makeup, absolutely think about it. Again, what does your audience need? Do you want to look professional? Do you want to look as if you've just done yoga? That's fine. It's got to be right for the audience. And just a really quick tip on wardrobe. A very good friend of mine, Natasha Musson, who's a executive stylist. If you want to know her details, please email me and I'll hand them out to you. She's brilliant. She always says, give it a splash of color, please. But here are the rules. So generally speaking, now you can wear whatever you want. You can have your hair how you like, wear makeup, whatever you want, do that. But these are really suggestions and rules of thumb. Lipstick actually frames the face. You do want to wear makeup, yes. If you were going on TV, they would go shove you into hair, wardrobe, makeup. They wouldn't. You don't argue with them. Oh, I don't really wear makeup. They'll go get into wardrobe and makeup because you don't want to look shiny. So men, yes, they can also wear loose powder. Loose powder stops the shine. So the answer is wear makeup. Yes, think about what you're going to wear. But general rules of thumb. White doesn't really work on camera because white drinks the light, and then the rest of the shot, including your face, will probably look too dark. So don't wear white. Color, good, but you know, think about, do you want to look like woo bright, or do you want to kind of have a splash of color with some dark? All black, I'm afraid, looks funereal, and it would on the stage as well. If you're doing public speaking, I would say don't have all black because you'll just look too dark and too like, my goodness, are you going to a funeral today? So that brings me on to tip 10. And this is my favorite tip of all. because I have tried and tested and failed many times when it comes to the simple tip, the Oscar Wilde quote: be yourself. Be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. Be yourself. And if you're like Marmite, some people will love you. Some people may not. Some people may not love you. They might even really hate you. No, they won't hate you. But you've got to just be yourself, because when you compromise your own personality, when you compromise yourself for other people, it doesn't work. And I actually did a few weeks ago, I was trying to get to grips with the whole virtual masterclass, and I did this big virtual masterclass, and I did a series, and one of them wasn't so great, and the technicals went wrong. Don't worry, the technicals might go wrong. It happens. When I was at the BBC, they always used to go wrong. I've fallen off air on a live show so many times. It goes, you've seen it on television, things go wrong technically, of course they do. But anyway, in this instant, things went wrong. I lost my confidence a bit. I tried to be more slick. I was trying to be professional. I was trying to please everybody. And I realized that I was actually compromising my own personality. And some people were like, oh, who's this person? And I took it really personally. And I thought, you know what? Fine. I'm a bit showbiz. I'm bubbly, whatever. And I used to fight against, like, I'm too bubbly. Oh no. And now I've realized I'm a little bit crazy. I am bubbly. I'm not buttoned down. I'm not the most sensible presenter in the world. I've got my own style. My style isn't right or wrong. It's just my own style. And when I compromise my own style and my tips and what I do, it's not good. And I've just learnt, be yourself. And don't worry about the people that don't like it, because if they don't like it, they don't have to email me for tips. They don't have to ever see me again. But please don't let that put you off going online and trying this TV presenter style. Don't let it put you off. The worry that some people might not like you. You're never going to please everybody all of the time. Okay, so I'm going to do your questions in 1 second, but before we do that, a very, very quick competition time. You can win a signed copy of my book today. So if you're watching live, in the next hour, I'm going to pick out a winner. All you've got to do is write tips, please. Email me, esther@estherstanhope.com, but you've got to do it by 1:30, and I'm going to pick a virtual winner out of my virtual hat if you're watching live. And I'm going to put it in this envelope, and that's going to go in the post today. And this is about public speaking, but I've got to say, goodbye glossophobia, fear of public speaking. The tips are very similar to the fear of being on camera. So it's got what if I go red? What if I forget what I'm saying? What if I'm put on the spot? What if the tech goes down? It's all very, very similar stuff. How do I tell a story? Do I tell a story? Do I use a script? How do I use a script? There's loads of tips in this book. So please do write tips, please. Esther@estherstanhope.com. Esther spelt with an HESTHER. And I will pick a winner by 1:30. If you're watching a recording, I pick out winners every Friday from people that have asked me for tips. So if you're watching this recording at a random date, doesn't matter what month it is, every Friday from all of the people that contact me, I always pick a Friday winner. So you could be a Friday winner. So please also do apply to win one signed copy of my book. I'd love to send it to you. Okay, now we're getting on to, so I'll leave that up for a few moments while I look at the questions. Let me just get my Q&A. Okay, so I'm gonna answer as many of these as possible. If I don't get to answer them by the hour, I will email them to you as well. So please do write, please answer my question. Okay, so let's just quickly do this. What are your tips for coaching remotely? Coaching remotely, I've got to say, we've actually got a the WeAreTheCity team are going to answer this live. Okay, great. Coaching remotely. There's actually a webinar. If you're watching this live, there's a webinar tomorrow. I can send you the details of it. There's actually a webinar about coaching. It's actually more about marketing and coaching. The tips for coaching remotely is try and keep it as authentic and as realistic as possible. Do remember that when you're engaging with your coachee, that you do have to look into the lens. So you are living in a slightly different world. I would say have some camera work, because I've done quite a lot of work with the Association for Coaching recently. I would say if it's intimate, sometimes a nice image on the screen rather than, and I'm just going to unshare for a moment. I'm just going to unshare here. Oh, I can't find it. My thing isn't working. Here we go. I'm just going to put this up now so you can see me. I would say have an image on a screen, and so you've just got the audio. Sometimes it's more intimate just to have the audio rather than try and kind of cope with the video all the time. Because the trouble with video is that you're thinking about the video as well as the person, as well as what they're saying. So maybe have some video, and then maybe there's a beautiful rainforest or something that's relevant to the subject. If it's something about the way you feel, something, a photograph, you know, flowers, something that makes this peaceful or something. Having images on the screen, and so you just keep the conversation going where you're not looking at the camera, would really help. Okay, hi Esther, especially when delivering detailed content, how do you still keep looking at the camera, especially, oh, that's gone up. This is Sangi. Hi Sangi. So how do you keep looking at the camera, especially when you want to read a script? To script or not to script? That is the question. There's lots of tips about script. Now, I would suggest that if you've got a very scripty, that's not even a word, but I'm going to make it a word, scripty content. One of the things I do is I literally put on a board with big writing, and I put it behind my camera. I put the script up behind my camera. If I were you, I would mix and match being on camera. If you've got very detailed content, quite busy slides, and it's more like a kind of lecture style presentation, I would take yourself off camera for those bits. Practice. By and large, very long-winded scripts don't really work because people switch off, and people don't really like verbatim scripts, really. It depends what the situation is, what the audience expects, and how scripted you need to be and you have to be. Okay, this is anonymous. How important is it to practice video call interviews? I had what felt like I had an anxiety attack when I practiced a few days ago. It made me feel worse. Oh, an anxiety attack. Do you know what, Anonymous? Don't worry. You're not alone. I seriously had to go to the toilet many times a few weeks back because I was overwhelmed with the technology, and I was overwhelmed with the fear of failure. And I felt exactly like that. And I was like, I'm properly stressed, and I'm a professional. And then I put myself under so much pressure because I thought, oh, you've got to be good. You're a former BBC producer. You can't mess this up. You've got to be brilliant. And I really put myself under so much pressure. Find a safe space with a friend, sister, a friend, parent, you know, find somebody that you can just have a laugh with. In fact, you know, over a nice glass of something bubbly, and it doesn't have to be alcoholic, but if you fancy a cocktail, why not? Do it for a laugh. Practice and have a laugh, and do a quiz and do silly stuff, right? Just get in the mood. You need to be just, you know, pressing go and just getting yourself in the zone. Do it for a laugh first. Don't try and do a big serious professional all singing all dancing practice. Okay, that's my advice there. Okay, this is from Claudia. My home office has bookshelves. Is it better to blur the background? Oh yes, I've seen those blurred backgrounds so that people don't scan through your book titles or they look as though you've got something to hide. Again, I would practice. I mean, how is, I've just realized that I'm slightly out of shot. How good is your, what have you just practiced with a blurred background? Does it look better or worse? I'm not a huge fan of the blurred background. It looks a bit odd. It does look a bit strange, doesn't it? I think bookshelves are pretty safe. They're a pretty safe bet. It depends how obvious the titles are, and you can say, okay, yeah, you know, if you're looking at my books, you can make it just say, I thought I had bookshelves today, or I think maybe acknowledge the fact that you've got bookshelves behind you. I'm trying the blurred background. It might look quite nice with bookshelves. I'm personally not a fan though of those funny backgrounds. Okay, so Sally, what do you think about Microsoft Blur? Oh, right, about the blurred background. It blocks out everything. I think have a go with it, record it, ask a friend, colleague, lover, partner, ask them, what do you think? what do you have a play around, get a curtain like me, go to maybe there's a bit of a mirror in the background, or there will be somewhere in your house that you can set up. My advice about if you've got a laptop, if you want to set up in different areas in your house, get some books and put your laptop on books. So your laptop is slightly above chin height. It's more flattering. Now, I know that we are coming to our 1 hour. Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy to answer some more of your questions. I'm happy to email you them. I can actually also just add a couple of the frequently asked questions on the follow-up email. But please do contact me if you want to win my book one Friday. Right, tips please, and it's esther@estherstanhope.com. I'm just going to quickly share the screen so I can tell you some of the fantastic what you've got in store for you for the next webinar, which is the Sustaining Resilience in the Face of COVID-19 and Beyond with Dr. Arti Anal, and that is going to be fantastic. I've loved this series. I've watched them back. They are brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for joining me. I've really, really enjoyed this session, and I know there's questions coming in now thick and fast, and I'll be really, really happy to answer some of them after this. So stay safe. Thank you so much, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon.